done. Quit the internet. But I gotta talk about Kingdom Hearts. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Today we're going to be talking about Kingdom Hearts, not the flippin' Kardashians. Now, I'm not going to be able to talk about everything in Kingdom Hearts in this video. In fact, it's probably going to take me either 2 or 3 videos to explain why Kingdom Hearts is so popular. I mean, I can't just fit everything into one video. It would just be way too long. And I feel like we just need to look at not each and every individual game, but the way that Square Enix has now presented the games in 1.5 remix and 2.5 remix, and now we're getting 2.8 prologue. I think it's important to look at each bundle and then to come up with a final conclusion on why the series is so popular. So of course we gotta start at the beginning. Well, not the beginning of the story, but the beginning of which game came out first. So we're going to talk about today Kingdom Hearts 1.5 HD Remix. So let's go ahead and get started. Before we can actually dive into the game, we actually got to talk a little bit about the backstory. So first of all, it was developed by Square and published by Square and Sony in partnership. It was also distributed through Disney Interactive. Obviously, they had their permission to have Disney characters. It was produced by Shinji Hashimoto and Yoshinori Katsai and directed by Tetsuya Nomura. Now, what's really interesting was how many times this game was released. First, it was released in Japan, March 28th, 2002. Then we in America received it September 17th, 2002. Then Europe received it November 15th, 2002. Australia received it November 22nd, 2002. And then Japan received the game again December 26th, 2002. Now, it's very common for games to be spread out like that with different regions, but the fact that Japan received the initial version, as they always do, in March 28th, 2002, and then receive it 9 months later, again, December 26th, 2002, the final mix, as quoted on Wikipedia. Now, what's interesting is that Japan and America actually received 2 different versions of the game at their initial release. Japan was actually missing out a couple of optional bosses and content that people in America actually seen. Now, I'm going to talk about some of that content a little bit later, being Final Mix having the complete story, but that was kind of interesting because then Japan received their Final Mix version in 2002, and actually America did not receive a Final Mix version at all until the HD remix on the PS3. Now, Kingdom Hearts was a collaborative effort, like I stated earlier, with Disney and Square. Square wasn't facing a lot of success at the time. You know, they had Final Fantasy VIII, which kind of was a meh Final Fantasy game compared to 7, Final Fantasy IX, which is a phenomenal game, but was on a dying PS1 system. And they really needed something to compare to the video games at the time. You know, a new Mario game was coming out, Nintendo was still blowing up, aka the king of video games at the time, and Square definitely needed something that could compete with Mario and Nintendo in general. So they created Kingdom Hearts with a collaboration with Disney. You know, Disney is very popular. Disney characters like Simba, Aladdin, Cinderella, very popular universe. So what if we could culminate some Final Fantasy type styles with Disney and birth Kingdom Hearts? So even though they would use the popularity of the Disney characters to help boost the want to buy this game, you still have to have a pretty damn good story. A story that was on the level of that of the Final Fantasy VII games. You can't just have a game and just play a mindless Disney game just like, oh, you beat it, tra-la-la. You have to create something with depth, and that's what Kingdom Hearts did. They created a game of depth. This story, even though when it first starts off, you know, the story is pretty simple, and then it becomes more convoluted as more games are released and expanded across multiple consoles. I think that was a bad selling point to have these games on multiple consoles because it makes it really difficult on keeping up with the story, especially since, you know, Chain of Memories was on the Game Boy Advance, and then Kingdom Hearts 2 was back on the PS2. So it's kind of like if you just didn't play Chain of Memories, you have no idea why the Kingdom Hearts 2 opening is the way it is. Now, I don't mind there being multiple games out there besides just your standard 1, 2, 3. It adds a lot more depth to the story, but it could have been done better by having it on the same consoles, which they end up doing by coming out with the remix versions of the PS original games. Now, I definitely can't talk about Kingdom Hearts' popularity without talking about the music, and the main composer is Yoko Shimomura, and she did an absolutely fantastic job. I mean, we're just gonna let this clip just play for itself. Now, the gameplay back then was awesome. I enjoyed it, didn't have too many issues, but compared to its later and older, newer predecessors, it's definitely a lot more clunkier than, say, Kingdom Hearts 2 and Birth by Sleep. The camera control is a little wonky because you can't use the right analog stick on the PS2 controller to move your camera around, because that controls, for some reason, your list of items. I feel like the D-pad probably would have been better for that, but you have to use the trigger buttons, the R2 and L2 buttons, to move your camera horizontally, and sometimes the camera can work against you, especially in enclosed boss fights when you're trying to see where the hell your boss is coming from and get blindsided out of nowhere. But overall, it definitely feels like a hack and slash game, but not like a hack and slash game at the same time. You know, if the God of War franchise, it can get a little repetitive doing the exact same thing, but in Kingdom Hearts, it's not so. You have strategy, and obviously you can't just constantly just smash a button and win. But you actually have to change up your fighting styles a little bit depending on your boss, especially if you're not prepared for a said boss. So you definitely have to level up, and you can't just constantly hack and slash and don't guard. You actually have to block enemy attacks, use different magic spells to take advantage of that enemy's weakness, and so on and so forth, as well as position yourself in the boss fight to actually attack your enemy without taking any damage. Now, the bosses in this game are pretty simple. You're either fighting a Disney villain or you're fighting a heartless boss. That's pretty much the only two things. Now, in the Hercules world, you're obviously in a tournament style, so you will face your Final Fantasy characters such as Cloud, Squall, and Yuffie, but overall, you're pretty much only fighting Disney characters in Heartless. Now, I understand the first game, it makes more sense. In Disney worlds, you're going to fight Disney villains because that's what that world's background is. Obviously, the villain within the movies, the villain that you're going to face within the video game itself, which I honestly did not have a problem with. I just separated in my mind the video game from the movie. I mean, the video games pretty much did a really good job of just of an abridged version of the movie story. So it's kind of like, if you haven't seen this movie before, it's like, why don't just go watch it and see what actually happened. Now, Sora, being our main character, is what we would say your average person. He is a kid with big dreams. He wants to see new worlds with his friends. And why do they want to see new worlds? It's because they want to connect with new people. Now, they have no problems with their home world, but they want to travel to new places, meet new people, to make new connections. And that's essentially what he does in this entire game. Yes, his main goal was, oh crap, our world got consumed by darkness. I gotta go find my friends Riku and Kairi. But along the way, he connected with new people. People that you and I probably would shy away from because it's weird, but just to have such an open heart and open mind and able to meet new friends, like they just see the light within him, and boom, they're able to be best friends for the rest of their lives. wherever they're far apart or right next to each other, they know that they got each other's back. And Sora is that. It's the main reason why he's not a bland character. He's the reason that you're able to play the character and relate to the character, because he's making these connections, like genuine connections that he's making. And I think Square and Disney made, or Square really just made a really good job of creating a character that wasn't an emo, that wasn't a monkey, that wasn't fighting between light and darkness. He was just a character that wanted to connect with people and was not afraid to face the darkness, to meet new people and to reconnect with his friends. He goes through his entire journey trying to help his friend Riku, find his friend Riku, and is not afraid to face the darkness. In fact, he gets his flipping Keyblade taken away from him, and he's like, you know what, fine, I'm gonna just fight you with this wooden sword. You know, I'm gonna get my friend back if I have to fight you with a toy wooden sword. And you know, that's why I can just never get annoyed with Sora. You know, he's not the typical anime character that's like Deus Ex bullshit and super powered up. No, he has to meet new connections and get stronger. Very similar to the anime character Naruto and less anime bullshit. But, you know, he's connecting with new people, fighting through his battles of loneliness. But that void is eventually filled with making the connections like he did throughout the anime series. And this is what Sora did within Kingdom Hearts 1 in the entire series. So that's essentially what I think of Kingdom Hearts 1 in a nutshell. It's very popular because Square created a character that we could relate to. We go on an adventure, meeting new people, new experiences, new worlds, and trying to save our friend from the darkness. Now at the end of Kingdom Hearts 1, after sealing the door of darkness, we end up in a road chasing Pluto, who has a letter from the king apparently. And when we chase him, we are led to Castle Oblivion. We don't know what the castle is at first, but the setting is Castle Oblivion, and we got Kingdom Hearts Chain of Memories. Now, I could go on with the video and talk about Chain of Memories, but I'm going to just give you the highlight. Just because when you play as Sora in Chain of Memories, you go through almost the exact same levels as you did in Kingdom Hearts 1. It's a segue video game between Kingdom Hearts 1 and Kingdom Hearts 2. The only interesting things you need to know is that we're actually introduced to Organization 13, who are going to be our main antagonists in Kingdom Hearts 2. We also introduced to some new characters such as Naminé outside of the organization, who has been messing with Sora's memories throughout the entire game. So then she says, alright, in order to fix your memories, I have to put you to sleep for at least 1 year. And then Sora's like, okay. And Sora, Dawn, Goofy are in sleep for 1 year. Also, we find out that Riku is also at Castle Oblivion, or Oblivion as some people call it. And he's traveling through the opposite. You know, Sora's going upstairs, Riku's going downstairs. Now Riku has to fight his inner darkness that he let take control of him in Kingdom Hearts 1. So the main antagonist is Ansem. He still fights members of Organization 13, which I will talk about in the Kingdom Hearts 2 video, more about Organization 13. But just for make this video shorter and not as long as it needs to be, he fights Organization 13 as well as Sora, but you know, takes out some of the members. Spoiler alert, he does take out some of the members. And the final boss is Ansem, the inner darkness that was trying to take control of him. He ends up defeating Ansem with the help of King Mickey. We found King Mickey is also there with us, guiding us with his light. And what makes Riku such a special character is that he's never afraid. He was never afraid of the darkness, and his heart was so strong that he was never afraid of the light, and he was never afraid of the darkness. So he could never succumb to the darkness completely, because he still had his inner light to help him maintain control, which is something that a certain character seemed to lack, which we will touch on later. So Kingdom Hearts 1, if you haven't gotten into the Kingdom Hearts series, like, what's the big deal, especially the newer generation, HD Remix is out on PS3. I'll have a link to that down below. I heard that they're actually releasing Kingdom Hearts 1.5 and 2.5 on the PS4 in the near future, so you might want to hold off on that. But if you can't wait and you have a PS3, it's definitely worth buying, because this story is amazing. It only gets more complicated, but it's only complicated because of missing pieces within the Segway games. If you don't have those Segway games, then you're going to be a little bit more confused than you really should be. But I'm going to help you guys with that. But that's part 1 of the Kingdom Hearts series. Next time we meet, it will be in part 2, and we'll be looking at Kingdom Hearts 2 as well as Birth by Sleep. Birth by Sleep might need to be its own video, just because even though Kingdom Hearts Birth by Sleep is not really 3 and it's technically a prologue to Kingdom Hearts 1, there's still a lot that happens within Birth by Sleep in comparison to Chain of Memories and Recoded, so, and 3DS Dream Drop Distance. So we're gonna have to go on to Kingdom Hearts 2 and talk about what the hell happened there, and how did they improve from Kingdom Hearts 1 to Kingdom Hearts 2 in terms of animation, story, character development, gameplay. How did it improve, and why did it really just kept driving the force forward in terms of the Kingdom Hearts experience. So I was King Shaka. This was another Why So Popular series, and I will see you guys in part 2 of Kingdom Hearts Why So Popular. Hot damn. See you guys later. Peace.